Hello, and welcome to Technically Speaking, where scientists and engineers come together to chat about a common interest, share knowledge, and satisfy some curiosity. I'm Laura, and I'm joined by Jasmin and Antonia to talk about locating huge arrays of solar panels on farmland and whether this is actually a good thing or not. Jasmin, you work in this area, pun not intended there. Tell me about it.
Agrovoltaics, which is the name for when you co-locate solar farms on agricultural land. There are currently 15 commercial farms that have solar panels right now in the UK, and they cover a variety of different types of animal husbandry as well as crop growing.
So they're actively supplying energy to our national electricity grid.
Yeah.
Nice. That's more than I expected. You don't tend to see it. There's a lot of agricultural land near where I live, but you don't tend to see many solar farms on them. I can think of maybe one, which is quite a long way away. Do you have any idea how much of a contribution they make to our electricity supply?
It's small. I mean, depends on how you define scale. So if you're thinking about a nuclear power plant, it's small. It's between 1 to 5 megawatts. But if you think of solar farm scale, pretty decent.
Okay, fair enough. I guess we can get into that as we go on. But Antonia, you work in sustainability and you're an energy manager, so I guess you must have some interest in this topic.
Yeah, I think quite a few companies look at installing solar panels either on their roof or on some land they have. So I thought, it would be interesting if you could still use that land for farming, because that's something that people have kind of been concerned about. If you use up arable land for generating electricity, will you have sort of competing needs of power and energy versus food supply? So that is a quite a sustainability challenge. I found a interesting study about broccoli.
Okay.
They actually tried growing some broccoli in sort of normal land and then some under solar panels, and took a variety of measurements. And I think they grew them for about 3 seasons and compared the crop that they got.
Okay. It seems like such a random vegetable to choose to write your research article on. Why broccoli is what my first thought was when you were talking then.
So they had selected it because there's a thing that they called it light saturation points. So different vegetables have preferred light saturation points. Stuff like cucumber, tomato, aubergine have quite high light saturation points compared to broccoli. Basically, broccoli deals better in shade. So why don't we try growing that, because it will be shaded by the solar panels.
Right, so a light saturation point, I'm guessing, is how much light a plant can be subjected to before it basically just gives up and dies.
They never actually explained the meaning, or at least I didn't read the meaning, so I've kind of inferred it.
So you're saying the broccoli did better when it was under solar panels?
Not really better. The thing that they put in sort of the abstract or in news articles was that it would be better for farmers because it comes out more attractive to consumers. And the way they defined that was the broccoli was greener instead of dark purpley colour.
Okay.
And that sold more. So they're saying you could use agrovoltaics to make higher quality vegetable.
Okay.
They didn't really find that there was much of a difference in the nutritional content. There was a smaller yield in the size of the broccoli, but it also kind of fit the variations you might get from different rainfall anyway, so you might not really notice it.
Okay, so this sounds like a fairly inconclusive study other than the broccoli looks nicer to the consumer.
I suppose there was no negative effect, which is what people expect if you have more shade on your land, that you might have poorer vegetables.
See, I came across a study from arid regions that was doing a very similar experiment. So I think it was a university in Arizona in the United States. They found that despite the fact that the plants were in shade, they did better because they weren't getting as hot, and they didn't need as much water either because the shade had just helped cool things down. So it actually seemed like there was a lot of benefit to trying to grow things in arid regions underneath solar panels.
Yeah, the broccoli study was in South Korea, which I suppose is a bit more of a 4-season kind of climate.
There's a review paper that analysed a bunch of different agrivoltaic studies, and they did find that the impact of shading was uncertain on the impact of like growing crops, but they did find out overall the consensus was that the benefits of agrovoltaics are reduced water consumption because of the shade and improved crop protection because of the shade and increased animal welfare, which I'm also assuming is because of the shade.
Yeah, I guess it depends where in the world you are and what you're intending to grow. Because I guess there are two different approaches to growing on farmland. There's growing crops and then there's raising animals.
It was funny because in that review paper, they found that lettuce was the most researched vegetable.
Followed by tomatoes.
Tomatoes, I think, are fairly ubiquitous. I grow them at home, but why lettuce? Is just because it grows quite quickly, I guess.
Yeah, probably.
It was easier to study, I guess.
I think it's a good thing, though, that a lot of these are showing that there are less resources being used to presumably generate the same yield of crops in a particular environment.
Yeah, and it also proves, I mean, none of the studies found that having the solar panels badly impacted yield or animal welfare, so it's like extra beneficial use of land because you can use it to have energy, but also make food. So I guess it's also just like showing to farmers that it's not going to have bad impacts on your business and your ability to farm land.
Sure, and I guess you'd set your study up that way. So if your hypothesis is this will have negative effects, then you design your study to look for those negative effects. But I guess not all solar arrays are on farmland. I'm sure I've heard of some that are in the desert where I presume not much grows and it wouldn't be used for crops or wildlife.
Yeah, that's the case in the Middle East where you've got really big solar farms. It's desert. China also has a few that are in the desert, but I think they're trying to use solar panels to also like help with some agricultural stuff.
Oh, okay.
There is plans to have a really, really big solar farm. I think it's going to be in a Chinese desert. It says Goji region, which I thought was the desert, but could also be something about goji berries.
Gobi is a desert.
Oh yeah, Gobi Desert.
If it's Goji, then that must be somewhere else.
Unless the berries are named after the region, like champagne.
Possibly. So the world's largest agrivoltaic plant is going to be 1 gigawatt. It's going to be on land that was desertified. So kind of desert. And they're going to be growing alfalfa to help improve the soil.
So I wonder if they're expecting that if it's in, I assume it's in quite an arid area, if it's desert-like.
Yeah.
That they're hoping the solar panels will make it a bit less desert-like.
Yeah. If it does prove that it works, then you can use it in other regions where land has been desertified. So in like parts of Africa, also in parts of, I guess, also Australia, where they've got land that's just like turned into desert.
Yeah, I guess so. You mentioned, did you say it was a gigawatt?
1 gigawatt of solar panels.
Is that a lot for a solar farm?
That's huge.
Huge. It says in terms of area, it's 100 square kilometres.
Which, yeah, that sounds massive.
So if we had 10 kilometre by 10 kilometre area.
That is an awful lot of area to maintain. Because the solar panels, they need some human intervention. They break occasionally. They need to be cleaned and whatever else.
Yeah, we shall see.
Yeah, I'm also wondering how that compares to slightly more compact energy sources like coal or nuclear.
Oh, I mean, per square metre, definitely terrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You could probably fit several hundred metres for a coal plant of a gigawatt.
Yep.
If it's even 100 meters long.
So like hundreds of megawatts, or maybe even thousands of megawatts for a coal or a nuclear power station, I think. Does that sound right?
It does sound about right. But...
Nice. But at the same time, if it's land where you can't really do much else with it, and the solar panels are having an actual benefit on the environment, and you get a second industry coming out of that, then that seems like a good thing to me.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter so much that it's taking up quite a large area.
Yeah, it's not like super habitable area.
Yeah, and to me that makes more sense than having it like say a massive solar array like right next to a town or a village where people probably don't really want to see it because it would just look like some dystopian black wasteland.
What about the solar farms where they're like designed to look like, say, a panda or a fun character? They do that in China too.
I guess if you live on a hill overlooking it and you can see the funky shape they've made, then that's maybe not so bad. But if you're on the ground right next to it, you wouldn't know, would you?
Yeah, that's true. I guess you kind of do need to like be at an elevation to see it.
All depends on your perspective.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a proposal to put a solar farm near a town next to me. It would be on a hillside, so it would be above the town, and it would be the same size as the town, so it's quite large.
Wow.
Yeah, and no one really likes the idea of it because it's just not something we're used to seeing.
Also, you can get so much glare when it's really sunny from all the sunlight reflecting off it.
But if it's above you, you wouldn't.
Wouldn't it depend on the angle?
Yeah, it depends on your angle. When I've been on trains and I've gone past the houses that have lots of rooftop solar panels, I get blinded sometimes. I'm like, ow, my eyes.
I have not had this issue.
I've had it so many times.
Because also, I think it depends on the type of panel you get. There's the sort of purpley blue one, which I think is more shiny, and then there's the monocrystalline, which is more just black.
I wonder if maybe some of the older ones have got a more reflective surface, and then someone cottoned on to the fact that it was a problem, so they've somehow made it more matte.
I'm hoping that someone has made it more matte because that was very annoying.
It would make sense. I mean, some solar panels have been around for decades now and they sort of reached end of life. So they've probably changed quite a lot in 30-ish years.
Yeah, and also there's like a whole bunch of like different types of materials being used for solar cells now. Not just the crystalline ones, there's all the other kinds.
Oh, that sounds like a separate episode. Getting away from...
Or is it an old episode?
We did a little bit. We did the difference between silicon and perovskites, and perovskites aren't in use yet. But we didn't go into the different types of silicon-based ones and tandem cells and all that jazz.
Or the thin film ones.
Yeah, exactly.
That's skipping a generation, going from crystalline silicon to perovskite.
But I guess if we get back to the agricultural aspect of the episode, it's also relevant to me because we have a lot of sheep around here. I saw a study about sheep farming. Well, it was done by a company or on behalf of a company that produces photovoltaics, so it might be slightly biased. But the press release basically said that there was better quality wool produced from sheep that were co-located with the solar cells versus those that weren't.
But looking at how they presented the results of the sheep who were from that farm versus whatever the test sheep was, the difference between the different parameters that they assessed the quality of the wool on was very minuscule. But I'm not, like, I don't work in the area of wool, so I don't know if less than 5% if that's significant. Because they had things like softness of the wool, and I was like, does this matter?
The other thing is they only presented the average from the sample groups. And was the sample group, I can't remember, 12, 24?
It was quite small.
24-ish, I think. Yeah, it did occur to me that as a physicist, if you don't have error bars, then it's not really a result. And they didn't have any error bars, so I wouldn't trust them. Like, what if the error overlaps and it's basically saying, well, these are the same data sets?
Could have very well been. I mean, the difference between the test and the actual field sheep, like, it was very small.
Yeah, I feel like there needs to be a follow-up study with many more sheep on probably a sensible time frame.
Yeah, I came across another review article that was focusing on small ruminants. There wasn't very many studies for them to actually sample from. So the only one that actually had animals in a control farm and then one with photovoltaics was one study from Oregon in 2021.
Okay, so it seems like an odd review paper if it's only got one reliable source.
Oh, I meant for sheep.
The thing is, the really, really big agrovoltaic farms, they're the ones that involve sheep, because you need a lot of land for like the bigger the solar farm, the more land you need. And in like some places that just means sheep farming, because got plenty of space.
Yeah, I guess cows are a little bit too big.
Yeah.
They'd keep standing in front of the solar panels and shading them. You don't want that.
They did have 2 examples of studies on cows.
And did they say whether there was less power output from cow co-located solar farms, or were the cows happier, or did they not have any conclusion?
It was a little inconclusive.
How did I preempt that?
That seems to be a bit of the theme of this episode. There's a lot of like inconclusiveness. But they found that generally they're less stressed.
Did it explain why they were less stressed?
And how they know it?
Maybe not in the review paper, but maybe in the original studies they did.
Okay.
They were more worried about them not moving because there was shade, and so they would just sit under the solar panel, and so they were worried that they wouldn't grow as much because they were being lazy, essentially.
I feel like that's most cows. It's not often I see them walking around in fields near me.
I thought that's what you wanted for cows to do so that the meat was more tender, because is it Wagyu beef where they give the cows massages?
I don't think these were Wagyu beef cows, though.
No, it probably depends on the breed. If they're bred to be in a field wandering around munching grass, then they're probably going to be bigger and happier. I don't know why I keep thinking of happy cows, by the way.
You're assuming happy cows. Was there any studies that considered co-locating a solar farm with chickens?
Not mentioned here, because obviously this was about small ruminants, and they also mentioned cows, which I wouldn't really call a small ruminant.
What about pigs? Any pigs?
No.
Oh.
Are pigs ruminants? I don't know why I'm discussing this.
I think ruminants have to specifically have the multiple stomachs.
I mean, chickens, I imagine you'd have to clean your solar panels a lot more as well. And that is not a good thing.
No, and maybe that's the reason why they stayed off birds, because they liked sheep over goats, because goats have a predisposition to jump, including on panels, and chew wires. So maybe that is also a concern. If you have like chickens scratching the ground and pecking at it, that might also damage the solar panel cables.
Maybe. So we'll stick with sheep, shall we?
Yeah. But there is one agrovoltaic farm that's in Spain, and the land that is on its used for sheep grazing, lesser kestrel breeding. Maybe it's just birds that they hope don't try to jump on and scratch and poop on the solar panels.
I have to train them out of it several generations later.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the kestrel breeding though. I want to know more about that one.
Why specifically kestrels?
Yeah.
The lesser kestrel, I don't know.
Maybe it's a small, easily trainable falconry type bird.
Possibly.
I'll ask my tame falconer, see if they know. All these studies, they do seem to be encouraging for the future, because all they're saying is that yes, it is possible to have animals in a field where you've got solar panels, and they don't seem to mind it. They seem quite happy with it. You can grow certain crops with solar panels and it's not at all detrimental to them.
Yeah.
So maybe we should be having more of these things.
I mean, yeah, if it's like something that a farmer is open to doing, if they've got like a field and they feel like they would be open to renting out their land to an energy company to install some solar panels, then yeah, something that they should be encouraged to do.
I had seen that it does depend on how you can connect to the grid, though. You can't just put them absolutely anywhere. You have to be near, I guess, an existing grid connection. I don't know how that works.
Or you just have a lot of cable to lay.
There's that as well, I suppose. I guess they want to keep costs down.
Which is one of the challenges with offshore wind farms. Where it's really windy in the UK, for example, there are not as many people living there.
That is true. So apparently there's actually like a floating solar farm. I think it's in Surrey.
Oh, right. I was expecting you to say somewhere not in the UK or near the UK.
I was expecting it off in the sea.
I know, it's in London. No, it's called the Queen Elizabeth II Reservoir Solar.
On a reservoir?
Yeah.
I have heard of people having an issue with water evaporation in reservoirs if they're open, so maybe that's an alternative way instead of putting, those like black balls just covering it, kind of like a bore pool.
Full of fish and wildlife below. Because that would be my first thought. What happens to the ecosystem in that reservoir if you're suddenly shading it? I mean, it'll be cooler in there, but how does that affect the plant life?
It says it only covers 10% of the reservoir area.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if it's going to have much of an impact.
No.
But I was going to also raise a benefit to people who already have solar farms is if you have to maintain the land, having grazing sheep means you don't need to get equipment.
Oh, yeah.
And you might need to use less herbicide to maintain it.
Yeah, that is true.
So what farmers would do is they'd almost like rotate them. So they'd have like, I'm just going to put my sheep in this one to trim the grass here.
This is what I say to my friends every time their lawn gets a bit out of control because we have so many sheep nearby. And I just borrow some sheep from the farmer. They will eat everything. Can maybe get a bit of money for it as well. Why not?
Pretty sure I've seen videos of like people using goats to get rid of like really like invasive weeds and plants from feral land. Not sure how like successful it is at keeping the invasive plants away, but they do a really good job at clearing it really quickly.
I guess maybe the goats just keep coming back and they just kind of go on rotation. They go on tour. Tour goats.
Eating goats near you.
You just need to make sure they don't poop on that land that they just cleared, because otherwise they're going to release the seeds.
If you do it at the right time before things go to seed, then that should be okay.
But it depends if it gets digested or not.
Depends on the type of plant, I guess. Some seeds are sort of hard enough to withstand the digestive tract, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's how they propagate.
Like tomatoes can.
I feel like we've stopped talking about solar panels completely now, and we're just talking about random animal and seed related things. So Maybe that's a good place to leave it. So it sounds like there is more research to do on whether there are a lot of benefits to having solar panels on farmland where you're growing either plants or animals, but no one seems to have found a negative yet, which suggests that maybe we could see more of it in the future if people can get over their dislike of looking at large swathes of black electrical things in the countryside. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. The views expressed in this podcast belong entirely to the person that said them. They do not represent any industry or organisation. If you enjoyed listening to these views, it would really help us out if you could rate us, leave a review, and tell a friend. This podcast was sponsored by no one, but if you're interested in funding us to continue to have frank discussions about science and engineering, please get in touch.